Hello, I'm Mark Price. I'd like to talk to you today about turning your woes into wows. But first, there were two men who died and were standing at the gates of heaven at the same time. And St. Peter greets them, and he's talking to the first one, and he said, "What's your name?" And he gives him the name, and he said, "What did you do?" And he says, "Well, I was a taxi driver in New York for 45 years. And St. Peter says, "Well, that's great. You're welcomed into heaven." And he gives him a golden staff to walk around heaven with. And then the next man comes up, and St. Peter asks his name. He gives it to him. He said, "What did you do?" He says, "Well, I was pastor of the biggest cathedral in all of St. Louis, Missouri." And St. Peter says, "Oh, that's great." He said, "Welcome to heaven. Here's your wooden staff." And the pastor looked at him and says, wait a minute. I'm a pastor of a very, very large cathedral, and I get a wooden staff, but you gave that taxi driver a golden staff? Explain that to me, please." And St. Peter looked at him and said, "Well, here in heaven, we do everything by results. Whenever you preach, people slept. When he drove, people prayed." There you go. Life is wonderful. The reading today is from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 23, verses 27 to 32. Jesus said, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which appear beautiful on the outside, but inside are full of dead men's bones and every kind of filth. Even so, on the outside you appear righteous, but inside you are filled with hypocrisy and evil doing. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You build the tombs of the prophets and adorn the memorials of the righteous, and you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we would not have joined them in shedding the prophets' blood. Thus you bear witness against yourselves, that you are the children of those who murdered the prophets. Now fill up what your ancestors measured out." The Gospel of the Lord. So here we have Jesus with his series of woes. He had 8 woes. Woe to this, woe to that, be aware. And so this is the final in the series of the woes from Jesus. And for many of us, this is a whole different kind of Jesus. When we think of Jesus, we think of him as so nice and kind and wonderful and saying nice things and encouraging people and raising people up and just being so totally positive all the time. But he does have these series of 8 woes where he is warning people. And in the past, where he's talking either to the disciples or directly to the Pharisees and scribes, where he calls them hypocrites, he's talking really so that the people that are following him can learn from their deception, from their hypocrisy, and to not live like them and to not fall into their trap. And so, but today, he's speaking directly to the Pharisees and the scribes, and he's saying, look at you. You look like so clean and nice on the outside, but inside you're like rotting flesh. You're like a whitewashed tomb on the outside, but inside you're just your bones. You're all evil. What he's referring to was at the time of Jesus, one of the rules, 613 rules, the Jewish people were not, had to follow. You break one of them, you break all of them, was you could not touch a dead person. Or even a gravestone of a dead person. So what they used to do was whitewash the tombs, whitewash them to clean them, to make sure that they were clean. So if a Jewish person happened to walk by a tomb and touch it, that they would not get the evil from it. This is something that they believed. So he's saying that these scribes, these Pharisees, they're like the whitewashed tombs. They're clean, they're nice on the outside, but inside they're just evil. And we have that in our world today. I would name them, I know I pick on the media and the politicians a lot, but they put themselves out there and they make it so easy. But our politicians and our media today are like these scribes and Pharisees. On the outside, they look great. I mean, they have their hair professionally done. They have their makeup professionally done. They have the good lights from the cameras and the studios on them. So they always look good. But inside, they're spewing this evil. They're spewing all manner of things that are false. And the fact that they know it's false makes it even worse. And that's exactly the way the scribes were. Now, I know half the people that listen to this, half the country of the United States would say, well, it's this side that's evil and this side that's good. And the other half would say, no, it's this side that's evil and this side that's good. It doesn't matter. The reality is, Jesus is saying we cannot be like these scribes, these Pharisees, because when we are, where we're more concerned about how we look on the outside, that we're letting our insides rot. So what he's saying to us is, whoa, be careful, slow down, learn from these scribes, these hypocrites, these Pharisees, people who are in the business of pretending to be good religious people, but inside are living a life that's completely the opposite. I mentioned the other day that at the time of Jesus, there were about 6,000 Pharisees. And I said that they were, for the most part, middle income business people. And many of them became Pharisees so that they could maybe get more business. They would be in this position of authority and power. People would look to them and then they'd say, hey, come and buy my tents, or come and buy something from me. We see it today with people who might be involved in church leadership of some kind or another, and then they use it to sell insurance policies or to sell other kinds of products that they may want to sell. And Jesus is saying that this isn't right. That if you're going to be a follower of Jesus, you've got to stay away from this hypocrisy, from pretending to be one thing and in actuality being deep down inside something completely different. So that's his woe for us today. So how do you turn woe into wow? Well, Jesus gives us in these series of readings 8 woes. But he also gives us in the Gospel of Matthew 8 Beatitudes. The blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted. 8 wonderful Beatitudes, the blessings, the blesseds. So you want to turn your woe into wow. Say no to the woes. Say no to any hypocrisy in your life. Say no to any dishonesty in your life. And say yes to the Beatitudes. Ignore and turn away from those things that take us away from God, and embrace fully the things that move us closer to God. Stay away from the woes and embrace the wows, and embrace the Beatitudes. Remember, a couple days ago we celebrated the feast of St. Bartholomew Nathaniel, and it said that when Nathaniel asked Jesus about why he called him, Jesus said, because I saw in you somebody simple, somebody honest, somebody with no guile, somebody with no hypocrisy. That's what he looks for in us. And the way we get there, the way we become the person that Jesus is going to notice and fully embrace, is by setting aside any hypocrisies in our life, setting aside the woes and embracing the wows, the Beatitudes. Amen? This is Mark Price. Thanks for listening.